So thank you again, everyone, and especially those of you coming to us from Eventbrite and our current members. For those of you who are unaware, we are Vida. We are a life, health, and wellness, leadership, and career coaching company. And my name is Justice, and I'm one of the relationship strategists on the team. And what that means is when you're ready to have a conversation to explore coaching further, kind of find what's going to work for you, you're going to schedule time with someone on my team's calendar, and we'll have a half-hour conversation where I ask you deeper questions just to know more about you, hopefully outcomes from coaching, and really just get to know you so I can pair you with the right coach for you. So that being said, my calendar is first come, first serve. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop the link here in case anyone has something they want to get off their mind front of center. And then there is a special offer for those of you who come to us from a webinar. So stick around and find out about that. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Shari for today. The floor is yours.
Yay, this is me. Justin, did you drop that in the chat for everybody already?
I did.
Awesome. His calendar and the relationship specialist calendars fill up fast. So if you're interested, really you want to click that link and get in there. I'm Shari. This is me. I'm a career and leadership coach here at Vida. And today we're talking about people pleasing and how not to do it at work. And we want to get right to that. So let me show you what our agenda is going to be for today. The first thing that we're going to talk about is what does people pleasing look like? Because I think sometimes we don't recognize what that is, so we don't even know how to fix it. Then we're going to talk about creating your me list, and I'll tell you what a me list is as we get further in. We're going to talk about how to prioritize your me list, how you're going to build support and solutions, and then how to strategize your conversation about that. So this is primarily about work. If things come up personally, I'm happy to talk about it, but this is primarily going to be about what does people pleasing look like out in your workplace. So what is people pleasing? It goes across so many spectrums and looks so many different ways for people. Um, so for some people, it's putting someone else's needs above your own. And think about how many ways that you can do that at work. Not voicing an idea, possibly taking on something because somebody else didn't want to do it, so you think you'll take it, even though it doesn't align with what you want to do. Avoiding confrontation, big thing that lets you know you might be people pleasing when you just shirk away from anything that might be a negative in any way, shape, or form. Wanting everyone to like you is a big sign that you are working to people please. So you want to be friends with everybody. You want to make sure you're doing things so that people will always have something positive to say about you. That really ties into putting someone's needs above your own because you're consistently saying, I'm not as important because I want everyone to like me. So I'm going to morph into whatever it is they need so that they'll like me. Being that yes person. Being a yes person is tough. That again puts you in a position where you don't have um, boundaries surrounding you. And what happens is people you train people how to treat you. So people then begin to know, oh yeah, go ask Shari. She'll say yes. She never says no. She'll always say yes. And now all of a sudden you're being exploited. And again, cyclic, putting someone else's needs ahead of yours, not having confrontation. And then and this is far from a complete list, but these are some of the bigger ones, is perfectionism. Have to be perfect, can't make a mistake. If I make a mistake, people won't like me. If people don't like me, I'm going to have a problem. Have to be perfect. They're counting on me to do this project. It has to be absolutely perfect. We can't ever own a mistake. Things like that are signs that you're people pleasing. What's the result of this for you in the workplace? What happens is you're neglecting your own needs, neglecting your own goals, not working towards alignment to your values, not feeling fulfilled, not feeling particularly happy in your space. You're just going through the motions. Very often, when we don't deal with confrontation, we're internalizing those feelings. Those feelings are going to come out at some point. How and when and in what style usually isn't positive. So we're usually squashing that. There's usually lots of buildup where that's concerned. Um, the result is we end up not liking everybody anyway. And what happens is we're putting a ton of energy into having everybody like us. That goes back to neglecting our own needs. So we're not setting any boundaries. We're just doing all of the things to have everybody like us. That's exhausting. That's absolutely exhausting by the end of the day. And then you don't have the energy or the wherewithal to do the other things in your life, whether it's self-care, family care, indulging in hobbies, whatever it is. You're just so sapped all day from having people being on all the time that um, that's what ends up happening for you at work. And so it does sometimes spill over into the workplace too, where you're exhausted there too. And then, even though you're working so hard to avoid confrontation, you're going to have confrontation because you're just done. I can't keep this up anymore. I'm so tired. Leads to burnout, leads to tons of stress. Um, and and that's where some of these problems lie. So anybody, I can't see any of you, so just if you want to throw it in the chat or just yes, me, this is me, I totally recognize myself. That would be great. So I know that we're on the right track here. Um, One of the first things in the workplace is coming up with a way to be able to have a conversation about this. So like once we recognize that this is you, then you're going to want to start to create what I call the me list. What this does is it gives you the opportunity to come up with what is important to you so you know how to advocate for yourself in the workplace using the right language. Um, so here's what the me list looks like. It's part of a piece of a document that I use with my clients called the roadmap. Roadmap here at ALV is an exercise that we use that has multiple parts that help you get clear on what's next for you. Is it part of your career journey? Is it part of your life coaching journey? Is it both? And we use different pieces in this of this roadmap to help you get there. The me list or your negotiables and non-negotiables is a small piece. So again, Justice, at some point, if you would drop that link in for consults, if you want to work on pieces like this and more in coaching, get on Justice's calendar or any one of the relationship strategists' calendar so that you can get even more of this. But I'm going to take you through how to do this. The me list is 3 columns long. Um, any of my clients who work with me always laughs when I start to say, okay, I'm gonna show you how to use this chart. Everything I do is 3 columns. So your first column is your unfiltered list of wants. This is from the sublime to the ridiculous. It's literally anything that you could want in your role. Maybe you're not getting it right now. Maybe you're getting only some of it, and it can be money to I want free coffee to a benefit to I want to deal with this piece of this project. I don't want to work with this person. I only want to work from home on Wednesdays. I only want to come into the office on Wednesdays. I no longer ever want to come into the office again and I want to move to Alaska. Whatever your things are, you're going to put them in that first column. Your second column is your level of negotiability at this moment in time. Understand that this list is fluid and it will change as you change. And this is a key tool that we use to combat people pleasing in the workplace. And that's why it will change, because as you gain some of these things and learn how to advocate for yourself, these things are going to switch for you. So level of negotiability, I keep it super simple. I have 4 ratings that I tend to use. Not negotiable, somewhat negotiable, negotiable, and very negotiable. And that's because I like to keep it simple. If you are a data person, you can create whatever kind of cool key that you want for yourself. and then you drop that in. Obviously, third column is notes because as you can see by this example, things aren't always so just blue and white, right? I will only work for a manager with blue hair. That is totally non-negotiable for me. If my manager doesn't have blue hair, this role is not for me and I'm going to have a conversation with somebody. And then in the notes, green or purple hair is okay. So I'm already willing to be a little bit more flexible, even though it's not negotiable. Once you create this entire list, the next thing that we need to do is, and if you want, you can grab a screenshot of this, or not all that hard to recreate. Then the next thing that you have to do is prioritize those pieces. How do we prioritize from there? So if you're good with Google Docs and Sheets, sort it, right? Bring all your non-negotiables to the top. That way you can start to take a look at for yourself, how realistic is this for me? And is this really a non-negotiable for me? Now that I'm putting this in the scope of what am I doing at work? Remembering that we've already identified as a people pleaser. We already know that we're a people pleaser. So since we've identified in that space, and now this is the group of things that I want to change in my role, which ones are the most important? And one of the reasons why you want to determine what's most important is you cannot advocate for yourself for 40 things. And that's where also leads to some burnout because we already know you want to avoid confrontation, you're not going to go in there with a list of 40 things. That's not going to be comfortable. The likelihood is you're not going to be successful. So you want to prioritize those things. Take a look at what those non-negotiables look like and go over them. Are these realistic? Are these the things that I want? How does this impact me in the workplace? How does this help me move forward? So that's the space that you want to be in next. Once you have that pulled together, we have to create our support and solutions. It's difficult for you to ask and advocate for yourself without going in with a support system or some level of solutions. For those of us who identify as people pleasers, it's even more important that we go in with a solution because that ties into some of our feeling about perfectionism. So at least if we go in with some framework of what we think may work for us, there's a starting point for a conversation, which then feels less like a confrontation and more like a conversation, which is what we're aiming for, so that we can change out some of our language. All right, where do I look for those things? How do I figure out what my support and solutions are going to look like? First and foremost, you want to have in your possession what we call a brag book. It could just be a folder on your computer. This is the place where you have been putting, and if you haven't been, now's a good time to start. When you get complimented on something, when you get good feedback on something, when you have a good review about something, when you notice that you've taken part in something that has a positive outcome, even if you weren't the lead on it, start compiling pieces that have positive intent with them. So when you're ready to go back to have this conversation, you can see what things have you been involved in that support some of your priorities. And that's an important place to be so you know you're feeling like you have some credibility in that space for when you want to have that conversation. Second thing is documentation. You want to make sure that you have written somewhere what you're asking for, because that's going to make a difference when you have to go to follow up. Because people pleasers don't like confrontation, and we don't like to rock the boat, and we don't like to put our needs in front of anybody else's. If we have documentation, it becomes easier to follow up. It becomes less personal and more business oriented. Not diminishing the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace because it's super important. And I'm not diminishing the value of having a personal connection. But because it's so difficult for us to do that as people pleasers and we tend to take things internally, Documentation allows us to keep it in a professional business standpoint. Next, research. Research is super important to figure out, okay, where does this sit for me? Right? I've been putting everybody's needs above my own. Is this an area that I even want to be in? I set my list and it's not even anywhere on my list. Okay, well, what things do I want to be involved in? What ways can I give impact and contribute to the team or this particular project? Internally and externally, create support systems for yourself. So at work, do you have a colleague who's an ally for you? Have you had skip levels and have some buy-in from somebody in a more senior position? Have you aligned with a mentor, if not in the workplace, in your field, somebody who understands where you've been, you can talk to? Do you have a coach? These are the kinds of things that you want to have in place while you're building your strategy for support. Again, internally, it tends to be allies at work, colleagues, coworkers, managers, mentors, coaches. I behave as support system for very many of my clients who are people pleasers, because what we do is we come up with, which is the next step for us, which is some strategies around communication. How do I say this thing? What do I have in place before I have this communication? So again, not a bad idea to hop in and get that link in your workbook and sign up for a consult with Justice so you can work with a coach to do those things too. Externally, you want to make sure you have a good support system of family and friends for you to utilize. Um, because everything we're doing in the workplace, we're whole people. We go home. And that's where some of those boundary pieces come in, or we shut off our computer if we're working from home. So you want to also have a support system outside of work that can be a little bit of a cheerleader for you, be a little bit of an accountability partner for you, because the next thing we're going to talk about is how to communicate these pieces. And when we're communicating these pieces, it's nice to have somebody outside of work to act as a sounding board. Again, you can use your coach for that. I do, again, for many of my clients, will practice what these conversations sound like. Lastly on the list is solutions. And this is where all the work on top of this comes in. What are you proposing changes? And this ties back to putting together that me list. What am I doing that is the people pleasing thing? Am I apologizing for things that I had no fault in? Okay, that's a behavior I might want to stop. So let me think about what's a solution surrounding that. Am I constantly taking on work because I want everybody to like me? Okay, how is that best serving me? And what is the solution surrounding that? And that's where you want to go in with some solutions, because that gives that starting point for that conversation, and very easy to talk about while we're talking about it now, not necessarily so easy to execute. So having a basis for those hard conversations is a really good place so that you have a place to move from. And again, these things will work in your personal life as well. We're talking about your professional life. We're talking about what happens in the workplace when you're seeing these things happen. Um, you may not have a voice in any meeting because you don't want to rock the boat. Okay, let's talk about why is that happening? Why, what's going to happen if you have a voice? Let's look at what a solution looks like if you have a voice. Where do you want to have a voice? Sometimes it's a matter of going back to that me list and prioritizing. Where is it important for me to have my voice heard, in this space? Next piece of this is communicate, right? This is probably the hardest part, is communicate. I want you all to just take a breath and on a piece of paper somewhere in your space. Obviously, you didn't have the opportunity to do an entire me list, but just jot down a couple of things for yourself right now that you're saying, These feel non-negotiable to me, and they very much feel like a product of my people pleasing, and I want to make that change. So start jotting down for yourself on a piece of paper. If you want to share with the group, feel free to throw them in the chat and everyone can see what they are. Maybe you have some of the same ones. And then we want to talk about how to communicate this message. In most cases, you have to identify to whom do you want to communicate it to, right? Are you having this conversation with your boss? Are you having this conversation with a coworker? Are you having this conversation with a skip level? Is it with a person junior to you? Is it with somebody who's just on your team? Where does this communication have to take place? Who is the person that you need to have this conversation with to help you get over people pleasing or to stop people pleasing? Sometimes the conversation has to take place with yourself because you're not setting any boundaries. You're not putting your needs anywhere that are even in the realm of others. So sometimes that conversation is with yourself. All right, how do we do that? This is a slide that has lots of words on it, and they're very easy to read. And this is probably the hardest part to do. So first step is preparing your message. If it was so easy, I probably wouldn't be a people pleaser. Preparing the message is pick your 3 to 5 main points. That's why we go back and do that prioritization step, because we want to make sure we're not trying to take care of everything at once. And again, like I said, this conversation, this message may be with you. The conversation may not be with a boss or a colleague. It may be with your own self or a coach or a sounding board person to say, oh, I need to stop some of these behaviors. They're not best serving me in the workplace. They're not helping me attain my goals. I'm burnt out. I'm feeling diminished. I don't feel like I have value. So sometimes that message is with you. But that's why we say earlier, let's figure out who are we talking to and for. Concentrate on those 3 to 5 main points. This next bullet is the one that most people don't like to hear. Practice out loud. Things that we say in our head are very different than when we voice them out loud, even with ourselves. Even with ourselves. I remember from a very, very early age, and I think I've shared this with a couple of my clients and they always laugh. My mom used to always say, if she was trying to teach us a lesson, I want you to, instead of just think about that, she would say, I want you to go have a conversation with yourself about this. And it used to always make me laugh, but I would go into my room and have a conversation with myself about it out loud because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Over the years, that's become a particularly important practice because I can hear myself. Talking in your head, we have a lot of distractions. We constantly self-talk. I can tell you, I feel like Morgan Freeman narrates my life so much of the time. When you practice out loud, it becomes very solid. It becomes very real. It takes on a different meaning, different perspective. It also helps you hear yourself. So if you're having this conversation with yourself, the out loud practice is really important because you will start to digest it in a way that you then can really understand it. If you're going to speak it to somebody else, the practice gets you very comfortable. If you are going to speak it to somebody at work, a key to getting that message delivered in a way that's going to be understood is using organizational language. And this goes back to documentation. That piece depersonalizes what some of this is. Even though people pleasing is personal and the effect that it has on us is supremely personal, trying to stop that behavior or advocating for yourself in the workplace requires a smidge of detachment. So want to concentrate on the thing and less about you personally. That's where using organizational language is very handy. If you want to talk to the result or the impact this behavior is having on the organization, on a company goal, on an objective that we're trying to reach, on a KPI, then that way you're making it very relevant to the workplace. Next step is keep it simple. That's why we're only dealing with 3 to 5 main points. Again, you're not going to tackle a list of 40 all at one time. Even for yourself as a people pleaser, you're not going to change all your behaviors overnight. That just it doesn't happen. So you're going to want to keep it super simple. Makes it easier to practice, makes you feel more comfortable with it, makes you feel more confident with what's going to happen. Next step is really probably so critical, whether you're having this conversation with yourself or with somebody at work. Summarize with a call to action. You've probably heard that phrase before. What is a call to action? A call to action is exactly what those words say. I am asking you to do something as a result of this message that I'm sending you. So if you have that conversation with yourself, let's say you're talking about boundaries with your own self. You may say to yourself, okay, I really get very upset with myself when I work past 7 o'clock at night. And I never tell anybody, and I answer my emails after that, and then I'm annoyed with myself, and it creates a problem with my partner at home because they're annoyed that I'm working at that hour, and I don't want to, but I feel like if I don't, then my coworkers won't like me. I won't be seen as a team player. So the message that I want to send to myself is I want to practice saying or typing to people, you know, thank you for reaching out to me. I will get back to you within how much feels like a good amount of time for you. 24 hours, 48 hours by the next morning. And now you practice that for yourself because that's what's going to best serve you. So you're not just going to turn around and say, "Hey, I'm not answering your calls after 7 anymore." I don't want to do that. That's not professional. That's not using organizational language. And that's not necessarily setting a boundary. When you want to set that boundary, you want to take a look out over what the whole process is going to look like. Not, I'm just not answering your call after 7. It's, thank you for reaching out. I'm going to check my emails at the end of the workday, in the middle of the workday, throughout the workday, please give me 8 hours to respond to you. Then you're setting an expectation for what that boundary looks like. And you start to teach people how you want to be treated. That's where that people pleasing will start to abate because the more you're doing this, you're setting new habits, you're setting new routines will help. That's what the call to action is. What am I going to do here? I'm going to set a boundary. I feel like I'm constantly apologizing for things that I didn't do. Okay, what's my solution to this? Because I don't really want to apologize for things that I don't do. I may practice saying, um, I'm sorry that that happened for you instead, you know, or I'm going to practice another phrase that's going to work in this case, or when I feel that need to come on, I'm going to take a deep breath. So as long as you have an action connected to it is going to make a difference. Now, those are things that if you're having a conversation with yourself, if you're having a conversation with a senior team person, a senior leader on your team, or a colleague, same thing there. You may want to say, okay, here are the things that don't best serve me anymore, and here's some of the solutions that I've come up with. Here's what I would like for them to happen, or here's what I want for them to look like. Then the key is following up with that. And that includes yourself. Doing a follow-up piece is really important to keep yourself accountable to yourself, right? Schedule a one-on-one. Hey, did I set boundaries? Did I execute on them, or did I end up working even though I told everybody I wouldn't? Um, did I try to be friends with all of those people who eat lunch at 1 o'clock who I don't even like, or did I come up with an alternative and try to meet some people within other departments that I think I might like better? Am I using organizational language and detaching a little bit from the things that are making me not feel good about myself? I'm burnt out. What am I doing? Check in. Check in with your progress and see how you're doing. If it's not working, you're going to go right back to this. Let me go back and show you. You can go right back here. You're going to take a look at this me list and say, okay, these were my top 3 things. I'm still doing them. I'm still apologizing for things that have nothing to do with me. I'm still trying to make everybody be my best friend. I'm still um, trying to make everything perfect and not own any mistake. All of those things. I'm still saying yes to everything that's being given to me. Okay, let me work on this part. Let me take a look and see what's going on here. Let me readjust. What's serving me? What's not best serving me? And let me go back through this process. So this ends up being your central place to keep it all together. Because we tend to be perfectionists, this is a way to help corral that so that we have a space that we can go back to. So that's something that you want to be able to keep handy for yourself so that you can consistently check in. And then you go through all the steps again until you get to the part where you're making changes. You're recovering from people pleasing. Your behaviors are adjusting. What happens from that is as your behaviors adjust, people's responses to you will then adjust. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But when you're consistent with these behaviors, the more consistency that you have, the more people's behaviors surrounding you are going to change. So I want you to please, I asked you to jot down those 3 to 5 things before. I want you to now think about what's a first step you can take for you. What's one of the first things that you're thinking you want to put on your me list? What's one of the people pleasing behaviors that you don't care for yourself? You can start throwing them into the chat. I can tell you for me, it was putting needs above my own. So when I finally learned how to set some boundaries surrounding that, I was able to use some language to say, hey, that doesn't best serve me, and I don't want to do that. And that was okay. So, so think about what's your first step. What's one of the things that you want to put on your me list? Later on in our session, we'll do some Q&A, and we could talk about some of these things and how to put it together. At this point, I want to turn it over to Justice because I want him to tell you a little bit about some of the cool things that we have going on here at ALV, and then we'll regroup and do some questions. So, Justice, are you ready?
Yes, I am, Shari, and I will actually take over the screen share for you, so no worries.
Awesome. Did you get it? Great.
Yep, I got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I encourage anybody, if you have some questions now, go ahead and start typing those in the chat, just so depending on how long they take you to type. But I know that this was a very career focused session. So for those of you that are ready to level up your career, our career coaching services do a plethora of things, from helping gain clarity and confidence around what a next career step could be, navigating those transitions successfully, resume and cover letter and LinkedIn presence, personal branding, networking, the list goes on and on. And people pleasing, as Shari mentioned a lot today. And so how does this work is we use our ALV method, and this is our proven system that has helped thousands of clients successfully transition into careers they've loved over the years. And, we're constantly tweaking it, improving it based on the feedback and the successes that we're seeing from our clients. And so it's something that we're really excited to share with those of you that are interested in jumping into coaching. And the way that it works, it's broken down into 4 phases. Phase 1 is really the planning phase. And that's where you're uncovering your hidden self, finding your perfect job, and just really that discovery phase that you really need to start the whole process with to actually have some traction to know where you want to start going. The second phase is the positioning phase. And this is where you're positioning yourself within the field, where you're revamping the resume, your online presence, you're doing interview prepping and really just focusing in to get that perfect job. So this is a really big part of the process where you're going to be working really closely with your coach. And we have amazing coaches on staff that work on all of these different aspects. So we're super excited to share those with you. The third part is the execution phase. And this is where you're maximizing your compensation, planning out your negotiation strategy with your coach, preparing for success in the first day on the job, and even your first 30, 60, 90 days, and really just setting yourself up to be successful in this new role. And then where that phase kind of stops, the fourth phase is support, where you start working towards your longer term goals. This is where a lot of our clients have built a relationship with their coaches and they realize I've now successfully been able to make this career transition, but now I realize that I might also be people pleasing in my life, or I might have boundary setting issues in other aspects of my life. And they really have developed this relationship and want to keep going with their coach. So this is where you start making that long-term support and really planning that out. And so, going off that, as Shari mentioned, you can people please in your life as well. As for those of you who may not be career focused at the time, we're also here to help you create a life you love. We do life, health and wellness, leadership, and career coaching, as I mentioned. And so we're here to help you create a life. Because it can be so hard to quit people pleasing tendencies, start respecting your own boundaries, making time to prioritize your goals, and find ways to grow your career, network, and your personal life. It can be really hard sometimes. So let's imagine coming to a place where you can learn, grow, be held accountable, which is a big thing that I hear a lot of times on my calls that people need assistance in, just to become the best version of yourself. Also working to build a long-lasting network with like-minded people, regularly learning about new ideas, techniques, and resources, and feeling challenged and supported every step of the way. And the big way that we really encourage that is to, explore having a conversation and join our membership. We have a lot of different membership options that me or anyone on my team would love to be able to share with you all. So I'm going to once again drop the link in the chat for my consult, but I'm also going to drop the link for our website in case anybody wants to go look through that to learn a little bit more about some of the other offerings that everything we have. So I'm going to drop those links for you real quick. And then in addition to your one-on-one sessions, if you choose to jump into that, you have a lot of bonuses that come along with this, meaning access to all of our coaches through celebrity session type sessions, our e-coaching content, and our ALV Connect Slack channel, which is a really good resource that has hundreds of people from all walks of life that are really just there to share ideas, ask questions, and learn from each other. Also, we have members only events. Shari and I are actually hosting one tomorrow, which is entitled Navigating Gender, Race, and Everything Else in the Workplace. So if anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about that, if you sign up today, you can definitely make our session tomorrow. We would love to have some more people there. But in addition to that, we also have group coaching. So, there's a lot of different options that we're able to offer to everybody. And, I love to just explore a conversation further to find the right package that would work for you. Establish a coaching partnership. You got my email right here. You've got Shari's email. All the links and everything that we talked about are also going to be sent in the follow-up email as well as the recording. So you can go back, rewatch everything, see if something resonates with you. And, like we said, we encourage you to book a call. We have amazing coaches on staff that cover a variety of different things and kind of just touch on every part of career, life, whatever you need. We've got someone on staff for you. So we highly encourage you to reach out to us because we love nothing more than support you at this time. With that being said, I would love to open it up to questions from everybody. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and kind of see what we've got going on in the chat box. Does anybody have a question they would like to come off of mute to ask us before we jump into the chat box questions?
So while you are all thinking about those things, want to let you know, please use those emails. Reach out to Justice or I. We're always happy to take it. I know people always think, well, are those really their emails? Yes, we're behind our own email boxes, and we actually do answer. So I had asked you earlier to think about one thing that was going to be your starting spot. What's your one thing? Where are you starting? What are you recognizing for yourself from this? That's your takeaway that you're saying, oh yeah, all right, I gotta get started on that. I have to think about this. What's yours? Like I had shared earlier, mine was knowing that I had no ability to put my needs first. So when I noticed that was bleeding into my personal life as well. My kids came first, my partner came first, my excuse me, my coworkers always came first.
And then Sherry, while we are waiting for some people to type this in, we do have a couple of questions from our Instagram poll for today's event.
Okay.
The first one says, what makes you feel guilty when telling others no?
What makes me feel guilty when I tell others no? You're
Yes.
asking me personally?
That's the question that was asked from Instagram.
Okay. So what makes me feel guilty is that I'm letting people down. And that really ties into my whole putting everybody else's needs first. Um, so for me, it was a matter of prioritizing what is important. Are these other things more important than me? And when I started to realize it doesn't best serve me, and in the long run, doesn't best serve my coworkers either, or my family, I started realizing I'm a better coworker if I say, that's not for me. But I'm happy to raise my hand in this space because that's where my skill set lies. And I found that that has made my work more enjoyable for me. So that's a big space. Is a lot of this comes back to yourself and figuring out where, again, go back to that me list. What's my priority, and how is this going to best serve me? It's not easy. Again, I don't want you to think just because we're talking about it in such a short time that it's just so easy to just go do. It isn't. It takes time, it takes reflection, and it takes being very honest with yourself. And that sometimes is the hardest part to acknowledge. Hey, I I am people pleasing. And even though those two words are so pleasant, it's not best serving me in the long run. And it's not best serving my colleagues either. I actually got a direct message from somebody with a question, so I'm going to read it out loud so that everybody can hear it. What about when a colleague continues to ask you for tasks that are not yours to do? When I say no, I get the silent treatment or comments, and I feel like it's more effort than it's worth to put in the boundary by then and end it all. I would say that if I asked for a show of hands, I would imagine most people on this call have had this feeling right here, which is, you get the eye rolls, you get the silent treatment. Here's where you have to decide if this is best serving you and what this boundary looks and feels like. So, first of all, if is it a colleague? Is it a peer? Is it a senior team member? Is it a leader? Who is it in that hierarchy? And that does make somewhat of a difference. Second thing is to prioritize for yourself. How much does the fact that you get the silent treatment in the comments really affecting you? This goes back to that people pleasing part of I want everybody to like me. Do you? I think that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Do you? Do you need everybody to like you? So if this colleague is asking you to do things that aren't yours to do, and by you saying no, this person gives you a silent treatment, does that matter for you anymore? And that's what that boundary is for you. It's like, you know what? You may decide, you know what? I don't like that. So I'm going to do the work. I'm acknowledging that I'm choosing that this isn't a priority for me. There are other things that are in my priority list, so I'm just going to do the work because it's not worth it. You may also decide and say, you know what? I don't think that I care that this person gives me the silent treatment and makes comments because they're not in the right in this case because they're asking me to do things I don't want to do. So that's not as important to me as setting my boundary that I don't want to do those things. I want to put my own needs first, my own fulfillment, my own job satisfaction. So you know what, person? Comment all day long. You're not affecting me in my workplace. Now, the other piece of this, which is unsaid in this question, is if this colleague is creating this challenge in the workplace, does a conversation need to be taken up with someone who's more senior? And that's also part of people pleasing is that avoiding confrontation. Now, it's just easier to do this person's work and not deal with them. Well, maybe the conversation needs to go up that level. Maybe you need to prepare what that conversation looks and feels like because this isn't best serving your career path. So that's the other part of this also. Um, So for the person who asked that, did that answer what you were looking for? Is there more to that? I'm seeing nothing. I'm gonna make the jump that I answered it there.
We just
Um,
have one more. What if
okay.
there's treatment slash freezing you out results in me not getting information in a timely manner to do my job?
Oh, uh, great question. Thank you for asking that one. Um, that's where you have to have a very hard conversation for people who are people pleasers because we don't like that confrontation. And confrontation isn't just kicking in somebody's door and having a fight, right? Just understand that having a confrontation could just mean a very difficult conversation with somebody that might not come out with the positive result that you're looking for. So if it's impacting your job, that's when you need to find your voice, practice out loud what that statement looks like, and bring in somebody who can help with a solution. So if you can't come up with a solution between the two of you because this person is just not collaborative, then you need to go to a senior leader and have that conversation with a solution. Hey, we're having a challenge here. I'm not getting information that I need. I need some support and help from you to help me get that information. And let it be known that you're doing your part to get that part of the job done. Or is there another way to get this information? This gets a little ticky-tacky sometimes because you don't want to be running all the time to tell on somebody, and that's how people pleasers see it. In our mind, we say, "Oh, they're going to think I'm tattling on them." You're not tattling. You're asking for support. You're letting your boss know that your priorities aren't being able to be met because someone on the team isn't doing their part of the job. You cannot put a puzzle together without all the pieces. It's kind of that simple. So if you can't get the pieces that you need, then you need to let somebody know that an expectation may or may not be met. Again, easier said than done, but this is where that practice of communication and delivering that message with organizational language becomes super important to do. Super, super important to do. Um, Thank you for the person who sent me that private message. I'm glad that it answered your question. I just thought that popped up. Um, Anything else coming in for us to talk about? Because I go back to ice cream if we need to. Happy to do that.
We just got a follow comment to that question that says senior leaders see this on a weekly basis for months and does nothing about it.
Oh, wow. Did somebody plant you in my audience? You're giving me all the good ones today, all the good ones. That's a really tough challenge because now you're not getting the support that you need. So this becomes a difficult, um, a more difficult situation is just getting exacerbated by the fact that senior leadership is seeing this. This now becomes still a difficult conversation because you have to find a way, and I'm being careful with how I'm saying this. There has to be somebody in your organization that's your ally that you can have this conversation with. And it may be this same senior leader who's seeing this weekly, and that may be part of the question. Um, you're seeing this. How would you like me to proceed? Sometimes asking that open-ended question, and again, first step is recognizing that we're feeling people pleasing, so we don't necessarily want to have this conversation, practicing what that message looks like. But then part of that question is, how would you like me to proceed? Because they could be doing nothing about it. Maybe your perception is they're seeing it, but they don't. Or they're hoping you'll figure it out on your own. When you ask directly, hey, what do you want my action to be here? You're putting it into their court. You're giving them their own little call to action. They have to give you something back. If the response is, hey, figure it out, then we have a new challenge that we have to deal with from that point forward. Now we're talking about spider webbing out. But these all require the difficult conversation. One of the hardest things as a people pleaser is to have those difficult conversations. So much easier to just come internal and do the thing, because then we don't have to deal with all the stuff. So that's why that piece becomes important. Have your list, identify what's important for you to take care of, and then how do we have those conversations and solutions surrounding that. I'm hoping that that answered this person's question too. And I hope you're able to do it. It takes time. I don't want you to think that you just hang up this phone, do the list and do the thing. It takes time. It's a little bit of a process because you have to start believing that you're worth not people pleasing. You're worth putting your needs first. You have value that you bring to this organization. That's why you're there. You have to start believing those pieces as you start putting together your me list and strategizing around what those solutions look like. Um, One last time, Justice, I see we're running out of time. Can you just pop that link in there one more time? I always get so nervous if our peeps can't get what they need. So can you just pop that in one more time for them?
Absolutely. I'm going to pop that
I
in there. I'm also going to
thank
pop in
you.
I'm going to pop in the link to our YouTube page where you can see previous webinars as well as our Eventbrite page where you can see upcoming webinars that we have. So if anyone has interest in any of those, you've got these, you need two, but these will also be in the follow-up email sent out tomorrow. There are
Oh,
those.
thank you. I will tell you, and if there's anyone on here who's one of my clients, I can't see, they can attest to the fact that I use our resources a ton. So really use that website, our YouTube channel. There's so much value and content in our webinars. Our coaches on staff are just superb. And I would love for you to get to meet a whole bunch of them and see what kind of value they can bring to really help you walk through some of these challenges that you have in career development. So don't miss that.
If anyone has any more questions, we have time for potentially one more, but Shari, in case someone's writing something out, do you want to leave us with any final thoughts for the day?
Yes, I do. I really, for my fellow people pleasers, really remember you have value. Nobody needs to come in front of you. You have to start thinking of yourself and being a little bit selfish, and it is okay to do that. It is okay to ask the question, how does this best serve me, and behave in that way. So please, 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 please remember those things and reach out with any questions. We're here.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any other chats. So I guess we'll just end a couple minutes early here. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you found a lot of value in this, and we hope to see you at future events. Have a great day, everyone.